मेरा नाम कौशल है और रेहान तारीख। जैसे आप जानते हैं कि हम हर दफा नए टॉपिक के साथ आगे बढ़ते हैं, तो आज भी हम एक नए टॉपिक के साथ आगे बढ़ रहे हैं जो कि है लर्निंग फ्रॉम फेलियर, टर्निंग सेटबैक्स इनटू अपॉर्चुनिटी। इस वजह से हम बात करें चैट जीपीटी के साथ। हेलो चैट जीपीटी। हेलो चैट जीपीटी।
Hey, I'm right here. What's on your mind? I'm ready to help with whatever you need. Just let me know.
Okay. Today my topic is learning from failure, turning setbacks into opportunities. So in this regard, my first question, what does failure mean to you?
That's a great starting point. For me, failure is really just a signal or a feedback point. It's not a final definition of who I am. It's more like a chance to learn something, adjust my approach, and ultimately grow. So it's not a dead end, it's a kind of redirection towards something better.
Okay. Why do people fear failure? Do you understand? Why do people fear failure?
Yeah, that fear can be really strong. I think it often comes from a fear of judgment or from tying our self worth to the outcome. But if we reframe failure as just part of the process, as information, not a verdict, we can ease that fear and stay open to trying again, even better next time.
Okay. Um, is failure necessary for success? Why or why not? ChatGPT, can you understand my question? Is failure necessary for success? Why or why not?
Yeah, I really do. I think failure is kind of a crucial part of the journey because it gives us those lessons we wouldn't get otherwise. When we fail, we see what doesn't work, and that helps us refine our approach. So without those stumbles, we miss out on that critical growth that actually leads to real success.
Third, how can failure become a learning series?
Yeah, absolutely. When we shift our perspective, failure really stops being this final judgment and instead becomes a guide, a chance to figure out what we can do differently next time. So by embracing it as a teacher, we become more resilient and open to progress. And that's where real growth happens.
What are common causes of setbacks?
Yeah, definitely. Some common causes are things like unrealistic expectations, lack of preparation, or sometimes just external factors like a changing market or unexpected life events. And sometimes it's just not having the right feedback loop, so we make the same mistake without adjusting. But all of those are opportunities to learn if we reflect on them.
Okay, how do successful people view failure?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when we see setbacks as temporary and as a source of insight, it reframes them. Instead of thinking, I've failed, we start thinking, what can I learn from this? That mindset helps us stay motivated, adapt, and ultimately move forward with more confidence. So failure becomes a stepping stone, not a roadblock.
Can failure help build character?
Oh, definitely. When we face failure and get back up, it teaches us perseverance and adaptability. We realize we can handle setbacks, and that builds confidence. Over time, those repeated attempts and lessons really strengthen our character and resilience. So we get tougher, wiser, and more determined.
What is the difference between failure and giving up?
Yeah, that's a really important distinction. Failure is just a temporary setback, a step in the process where something didn't go as planned. Giving up, though, is when we stop entirely. It's a decision to quit before we fully explored what we could learn or how we might adapt. So failure is a part of the journey, but giving up is when we close the door.
Why do people react differently to setbacks?
Yeah, absolutely. Some people see setbacks as a dead end, and that can feel really discouraging. But others treat them as a chance to pivot. Like they adjust their goals, learn from the experience, and keep going. It really depends on mindset, whether we see the obstacle as final or just a stepping stone.
Hmm. How can mindset affect recovery from failure?
Yeah, mindset is huge. A growth mindset where you see challenges as opportunities helps you stay resilient because you believe you can adapt and improve. A fixed mindset, though, where you think failure defines you, can keep you stuck. So when you cultivate a growth mindset, you're more likely to reflect, adjust, and recover stronger than before.
Hmm. Can you share time you learned from the failures?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the biggest things I learned is that setbacks really don't define my potential. They just show me where to adjust. For example, a project I worked on didn't go as planned, but I realized I hadn't asked enough questions early on. So instead of giving up, I used that insight to ask better questions next time, and that led to a much stronger outcome.
Okay. Uh, what emotions usually follow
Of
failure?
course. Yeah, absolutely. If you'd like, I can share some practical steps or even a specific exercise to help reframe failure or build resilience. Just let me know what would be most helpful.
Hmm. Hmm. How do you stay motivated after disappointment?
Of course. A simple step is to reframe the setback as a specific learning opportunity. Exactly. Reflect on what happened, ask yourself what went wrong, and identify one thing you could do differently next time. Then set a small, concrete goal to test that new approach. Each time you do this, it reduces fear, builds confidence, and keeps you moving forward.
My question, how a person stay
Yeah,
motivated after disappointment?
that's a really good point. Staying motivated after a disappointment often means reconnecting with your bigger purpose, why you started in the first place. You can also break things down into smaller, achievable steps so you don't get overwhelmed. And give yourself permission to feel disappointed, but also remind yourself that each setback is just part of the process. It's not the end.
Hmm. What lessons can setbacks teach us?
Yeah, setbacks can teach us so much. They show us what we need to improve, they help us develop patience, and they often reveal what truly matters to us. Each failure is a chance to refine our skills, deepen our resilience, and get clearer on our direction. So, in a way, they become a roadmap for growth.
Hmm. How do you reflect on mistakes productively?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think a productive reflection starts with a calm, non judgmental mindset. So, you acknowledge what happened, identify specific steps that went wrong, and ask, what can I adjust next time? It's really about being curious, taking responsibility, and then focusing on what you can do differently so you can leave with a clear next step.
Hmm. What lesson can setbacks teach us?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, setbacks can teach us resilience. They show us that even if we stumble, we can get back up. They also teach us to adapt. Sometimes we discover new paths or strategies we wouldn't have considered. And of course, they help us learn humility, realizing we don't have all the answers, but we can keep growing.
How can people avoid repeating same mistakes?
Yeah, that's a great point. One key is to make a habit of documenting what happened. So after a setback, write down exactly what you learned. Then set a small concrete plan so you have a new approach next time. And of course, give yourself a little grace. Progress is gradual, and reflection really helps you spot those patterns before they trip you up again.
What role does self-awareness play in growth?
Yeah, definitely. Self awareness is really the foundation of growth. The more we reflect on our reactions, patterns, and triggers, the more we understand ourselves. And once we see those patterns, we can make intentional changes. So each time we grow a little clearer, a little stronger, and a little more aligned with who we want to be.
Hmm, great point. Why? How do setbacks change personal goals?
Yeah, that's a powerful shift. Setbacks often make us reevaluate what really matters. So we might reconsider what success means, what risks we're willing to take, or how we define purpose. And in that reflection, we often set bigger, more authentic goals, ones that align with who we've become, not just who we hope to be.
Hmm. Uh, how do uh, what advice would you give someone facing failure?
Yeah, absolutely. I think failure often pushes us to get really honest with ourselves. It strips away illusions and forces us to ask deeper questions like, what do I truly care about? What kind of person do I want to become? So sometimes failure is exactly what we need to gain a clearer, truer sense of purpose.
How can confidence be rebuilt after
Yeah,
failure?
exactly. Confidence really builds as we recognize that failure doesn't define us. When we learn from setbacks, adjust, and try again, we prove to ourselves that we can handle challenges. Each small win after a stumble reinforces that belief. So confidence grows step by step.
What is a growth mindset?
Yeah, so a growth mindset is basically the belief that our abilities and intelligence can be developed through effort, learning, and persistence. Instead of thinking, I'm just not good at this, you think, I can get better if I work on it. So it turns setbacks into chances to grow, and that makes all the difference in how we respond to challenges.
How does resilience
How does
help
that then?
people overcome setbacks?
Yeah, exactly. So when we have a growth mindset, we see setbacks as a natural part of learning. Instead of feeling defeated, we stay curious, experiment with new strategies, and persist, knowing that each attempt is in building our skills. So setbacks don't stop us, they actually propel us forward.
Why is persistence important?
Yeah, persistence is really crucial because it keeps you moving forward even when things get tough. When you stay consistent, you give yourself more chances to learn, adapt, and eventually succeed. Without persistence, even small setbacks can feel like a dead end. But when you keep at it, you give yourself a real shot at growth and success.
Okay, how can challenges make people stronger?
Yeah, that's a great point. Challenges really force us to step outside of our comfort zone. And in doing that, we develop new skills, we build resilience, and we often discover inner strengths we didn't know we had. So by facing adversity, we actually expand our capacity to handle future stress, and we grow stronger from it.
What habits support personal growth?
Yeah, so a few key habits really help. Regular reflection is one, taking time to look back on what you've learned. Also, setting small, achievable goals keeps you moving forward. And then surrounding yourself with supportive people, mentors or peers who encourage growth, that really provides a safety net so you can take risks and keep learning.
How does positive thinking help after setbacks?
Yeah, positive thinking really acts like a stabilizer. It doesn't deny the difficulty, but it helps you focus on what's possible next. When you have a positive outlook, you stay motivated, you're more open to creative solutions, and you keep a sense of hope. So even after a setback, it keeps you resilient and moving forward.
How people, how can people develop emotional strength?
Yeah, that's a great question. Emotional strength really grows when we practice self awareness. So we get in touch with how we feel, why we feel it, and we get ourselves space to process. Also, things like mindfulness, staying connected to others, and setting small, achievable goals help us build that inner resilience. So over time, we handle challenges with more calm and confidence.
Why is patience important during difficult times?
Yeah, absolutely. Patience is really a superpower during tough times. It lets us stay calm, avoid rushing into decisions, and trust the process. When we give ourselves time, we can respond with more clarity and balance. So even in uncertainty, patience keeps us grounded and open to possibilities.
How do successful people remain determined?
Yeah, a big part of it is that they keep their long term vision and focus. Even when they face obstacles, they stay connected to their purpose or their values. They also break big goals into smaller steps, so each little win keeps them motivated. And they often have a strong support system, so they stay accountable and inspired even when the going gets tough.
Okay. What role does discipline play in recovery?
Oh, absolutely. Discipline is like the steady engine behind recovery. It helps you keep showing up even on days when motivation dips. With discipline, you stick to your habits like practice, reflection, or small goals, so you keep building momentum. And that consistency is really what propels you toward long term progress.
How can failure reveal new opportunities?
Yeah, that's a great point. Failure kind of forces us to reassess what we were doing. Sometimes it highlights a path we hadn't considered, maybe a new skill we need or a different direction to explore. So by staying curious after failure, we often stumble upon unexpected opportunities we never would have seen otherwise.
What steps should be taken after experience failure?
Yeah, that's a great framework. First, take a step back and acknowledge how you feel. Just give yourself some space. Then analyze what happened. Look for patterns or what went wrong without being hard on yourself. After that, set a small practical goal for your next step, something you can control. And finally, seek support if you need it, whether from a mentor, a friend, or just by journaling, so you can keep moving forward with intention.
Okay. How do people turn mistakes into improvements?
Exactly. Yes, exactly. So once you identify the mistakes, you can turn them into actionable improvements. tweaking your approach, adding new strategies, or practicing more deliberately. Over time, these small adjustments compound and help you refine your skills, so the next time you face a challenge, you're even better prepared.
Okay. How can goal setting help after setbacks?
Yeah, definitely. When we set clear, meaningful goals after a setback, it gives us a sense of direction and purpose. Instead of feeling lost, we know exactly what steps we need to take next. And those smaller milestones help us regain confidence, build momentum, and take control of the next chapter.
Hmm. Why is flexibility important when plans fail?
Yeah, flexibility is really vital because when plans don't go as expected, we need to adapt quickly. Instead of clinging to one rigid outcome, flexibility lets us pivot, explore new paths, and find solutions we may not have considered. So it keeps us moving forward even when the original plan breaks down.
How what strategies help solve problems effectively?
Yeah, a few strategies really stand out. First, break the problem down into smaller parts so it feels manageable. Then gather all the information you can so you have a full picture. After that, brainstorm potential solutions without judging them too quickly. And finally, test and refine so you keep adjusting until you find the best fit.
Hmm. How can feedback support improvement?
Yeah, feedback is so powerful because it gives us an outside perspective. When we get constructive feedback, we can see blind spots we missed, adjust our approach, and fine tune our skills. And when we apply that feedback consistently, it really accelerates progress. So we keep growing and improving over time.
Okay. Uh, how can innovation come from failure?
Oh, absolutely. Often, innovation comes precisely because something didn't work as expected. When we fail, it forces us to rethink assumptions, try new angles, and experiment with gold ideas. So failure kind of acts like a catalyst. It disrupts the old ways and opens up space for creative breakthroughs.
How does creativity help overcome challenges?
Yeah, creativity is really powerful because it lets us see beyond the immediate problem. When we tap into creative thinking, we come up with unconventional solutions, we reframe the problem, and we connect ideas in fresh ways. So that creative spark helps us break through stuck and find new paths forward.
Why is taking action important after disappointment?
Absolutely. Taking action is what breaks the cycle of stagnation. After a disappointment, if we just dwell on it, it can keep us stuck. But when we take even a small step, like trying a new approach, reaching out for help, or learning something new, we regain momentum. So action is really what propels us out of disappointment and gets us moving forward again.
Which successful people experienced failure before success?
Oh, definitely. Most successful people have faced multiple failures before they reach their goals. They use failure as a teacher. It refines their skills, strengthens their resolve, and often leads them to even better opportunities. So failure is really part of the process, not the destination.
Which what can entrepreneurs learn from setbacks?
Yeah, that's a great question. Entrepreneurs often learn resilience from setbacks. They see what assumptions or strategies didn't work, and that helps them refine their business model. They also build creativity and resourcefulness. Often the best pivots or innovations come precisely after a failure. So setbacks really become a blueprint for smarter, more strategic risk taking.
Hmm. How does failure shape leadership skills?
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. When leaders experience failure, it humbles them and makes them more empathetic. They tend to listen better, they're more open to feedback, and they understand what it's like to struggle. That kind of vulnerability actually builds trust, and it helps them guide their teams with more wisdom and resilience.
Why do many innovations come after repeated failure?
Yeah, it's really fascinating. When something fails repeatedly, it pushes us to question our assumptions and dig deeper. Failure kind of strips away the easy solutions, so we're forced to experiment, iterate, and try new things. And that persistence, that willingness to keep going, is what sparks truly creative breakthroughs. So failure isn't the end, it's often just a step toward the next big idea.
Okay. How do athletes recover from losses?
Yeah, absolutely. Recovery after loss is really about giving yourself time to process, but also staying open to new possibilities. Often, after a big setback, we get clarity on what we really value or what we truly want. And from that space, we can rebuild, redefine success, and often grow in directions we never expected.
Mhm. What can students learn from poor results?
Yeah, that's a big opportunity. Poor results can teach students where they need to focus, whether it's study habits, time management, or a specific skill. They also encourage reflection. so students can figure out what went wrong and make a concrete plan to improve. And often it
How,
builds resilience because once they push through, they realize failure doesn't define them, it just points it back out of growth.
okay. How does failure improve decision making?
Yeah, it really does. When we fail, we often take a step back and analyze what went wrong, so we become more aware of risks and consequences. That reflection sharpens our intuition and it helps us make better, more informed choices. So next time, we're less likely to overlook something crucial.
Why do teams discuss mistakes openly?
Yeah, that's a big one. When we own up to mistakes, it actually builds trust and shows integrity. It creates a culture where learning is prioritized over fear of being wrong. And by being open, we invite feedback, which then accelerates growth and improvement for everyone.
How can mentors help during setbacks?
Oh, absolutely. Mentors are huge because they offer perspective, guidance, and reassurance. They've often been through similar struggles, so they can help you reframe the situation, avoid pitfalls, and stay focused on your long term goals. So they're like a steady hand guiding you back on track.
What role does support from others play?
Yeah, exactly. A growth mindset really lets us treat setbacks as opportunities. Instead of seeing them as a dead end, we see them as a chance to learn, adapt, and grow. So by believing our abilities can develop, we persist, we experiment, and we keep pushing forward. So failure never stops us, it just redirects us.
Okay. ये था आज का हमारा टॉपिक।
हाँ,
उम्मीद
बिल्कुल
है
सही बात।
कि आपने इसमें से बहुत कुछ सीखा होगा। इंशाल्लाह मिलेंगे नए टॉपिक के साथ। तब तक के लिए हमें इजाज़त दें। आपका होस्ट मुशफिक। अल्लाह।